Welcome to the Outlier Mindset Podcast, your guide for living a life by design. Here, we explore the journey of becoming an outlier, finding your purpose, mastering your mindset, optimizing your health, achieving financial freedom, and building a life centered around your passions. So tune in, transform, and thrive. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset. Let the journey begin. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I am super excited today. I've got a friend of mine on board today. I've got Dr. Mitch. Dr. Mitch is the host of the Truth Talks podcast, which I've been on. It's a fantastic podcast. And he's done a lot of books. So what's going on, Mitch? Tell me a little bit about what you've got going on.
Well, I was a treating doctor for 28 years, and my second year into practice had a story hit me super hard. And it was a young gal who her father died that I knew very, very well. I watched her and her sister and them take this really wicked spiral downhill as far as even having children and having them taken away by the state. And I thought, wait a minute, there's more to these patients' stories than just treating their spines. And from there, I started to document stories and talking about these stories for the benefit of other people. And then 27 years later, here we are, manifest into this whole crazy madness, which we call Truth Talks, and there we are.
You got a book coming out, don't you, Mitch?
We do. So probably the first one that everybody's going to see. It's called Complicated, Not Impossible. And it's pretty much life, right? Life's complicated, but it's not impossible.
Nothing's impossible.
Nothing's impossible.
So what's the theory there? What are we talking about?
So, well, of course, you know what I do, right? We do a bunch of podcast stuff where we take different stories of different people, and we want to show kind of the positive influence that a story can make on another person. And so we always try and run something with some really good perseverance or just a really good positive message, and show that people that no matter what you're going through, there is an option at the end of it to write the last chapter. That's one of our themes, is write the last chapter of your life.
Yeah. I mean, you think about just life in general. I mean, so many people, we're always getting obstacles, right? We're getting things thrown at us constantly. It's inevitable that you're always going to have hurdles. You're always going to have challenges, right? So many people just give up so quickly, but they don't think about that. They don't think about the options they might have.
It's true. There's statistics out there. Did you know that 89% of statistics are made up? Did you know that?
Yeah, I think I read that on the internet.
I did too. It's a meme.
Abe Lincoln.
It's a meme.
Yeah.
Or something. So literally, it's true. Everybody has an obstacle, and depending upon your surrounding, your network, like in the book Complicated Impossible, I talk a lot about getting your mind right, how important things like family are, your spirituality. And I base that a lot on stories that I've already done. So I've done over 14,000 interviews in 27 years. And I always say to myself, man, I don't think I'll run onto anything new. And almost every month there's a story that comes out. I'm like, whoa, this is insane.
And, we'd love to do some stories because, number one, that's what the listeners are here for, right? I mean, this group of listeners is incredible. I mean, they're here to learn. They want to understand how to really maximize who they are, where they're going, how they think. But the other thing about it is you said something about balance, right? You've got to have good balance in everything you're doing. Because I feel like if you don't have good balance in life, you're never going to be good at, people try to be good at so many different things, and then they're not good. They're very average at every one of them. Does that make sense?
100%. You see it in all kinds of different things. Like I saw this one diagram. It's a wheel, right? And then around the wheel is every aspect of your life. And if one area is a little bit flat, the tire's flat, right? And it doesn't work. And I like all that stuff. I do. And I think it's wonderful. But I just don't know how much it applies to people, because it's really the ability to air that tire up versus really acknowledging where the flat is at, right? In that type of an analogy. So this would be a good time for me to bring this in. I had this case where I had this girl come in. This was actually to my office. And she has 3 kids, and they are two different dads on these kids. She comes in, kids are all over the damn place, and they've got every toy in the office all over the damn joint. I can tell my staff is pretty like, oh my God, get control of these kids. While all that's going on in my waiting room, the girl's inside, and she's telling me this. She says, we're living out of my car. We don't have a home right now. And so I'm hearing this part of that story, right? And I said, well, tell me what's going on. She said, we got kicked out of our place because we didn't have the right paperwork, and I had a job fall through. Then she tells me she was addicted to meth. She was addicted to heroin. She beat that addiction. Was clean for almost 3 years at the time that this story was coming there. Then she told me that she was also severely obese. She weighed close to 300 pounds. At this time, she's probably about 150. So she beat two of the hardest things you can beat, addiction and weight loss, and she beat them both. But in her process of the story, as she's telling me this, our parents gave up on her, friends gave up on her. She was a lone wolf. She's out there with nothing. My brain works differently. I'm feeling for her, right? And so I have a monitor in my room, and I see the kids destroying the waiting room, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. These kids have been living in a car. You know what? This might be the only 5 minutes in their day that they just get to be outside somewhere, outside this cage or outside this thing. I'm going to let it happen. So we walk out. She leaves with her kids. I tell my staff, and I said, they're like, gosh, she's got to get control of these kids. And I said, I know. Like, it drives me crazy, too, and stuff like that. Because you and I, we talked about we like to be clean, right? And so it does kind of drive you crazy. And then when I told them the rest of that story, you could instantly see the change in them. Like, oh, man, I get that, right? And I think this is where the majority of stories stop, right? But then there's something else, and this is where my brain goes crazy. I said there's two options that we have to do. Number one, if we don't go to the next level, though, and help her by helping those kids clean that mess up before they leave, or enabling her to say, hey, kids, this has to be done before we leave, are we really doing the whole story? We're not.
Right.
So we could feel righteous by letting the kids run around and tear everything up. But are we truly helping the whole story? We're not. And so that's kind of the premise of everything I do. Don't stop at halfway in the story. You got to finish the whole story and see where those options end.
And a lot of people don't even think through people's whole story. I mean, we're really, really quick to judge.
Horridly.
And we don't know the backstories on the majority of people who come in and out of our life. Because we get a lot of people who always come in and out, right? And then we always make these immediate snap judgments. But we don't know the backstory. If you would not have asked the backstory, they would have left. Everybody would have thought, wow, that she just had really unmanageable kids.
Really crappy kids.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part about personal development, personal growth. The personal development, personal growth is not about what you can read or try and do. It's about what you understand. When you start to understand people, that's your personal growth. It's the conversations that you have with people that you completely agree on everything. Those are fun. They're comfortable. It's the person that really disagrees with you. Can you control that temper? Can you control the idea that you don't just want to walk out and be like, I never want to see you again? Because I promise you they're teaching you something.
Yeah. And you and I have had a lot of conversations over the years, right? And one of the things that I've always pressed with my listeners and the people that I work with is doing the work. Let's go there a little bit. Doing the work. Because I truly believe there's so many people who think things should just be given to them, or it's just going to come to them, or if they just put it back into the universe, it's going to come back over to them without doing the work. Now, I'm not saying those things won't come, but not without doing the work. What are your thoughts on that?
Couldn't agree with you more on that. I think doing the work is kind of a phrase that the more people that you get to know, the more people you get to understand, doing the work means something different. I couldn't agree more. I see stuff on social media every day where you have 30-year-old life coaches. I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell? I mean, man, have you had a divorce yet? Yeah. Have you lost all your shit yet? Have you sat there and lost your job, relationships, went through all the stuff that we all go through when you start to get gray, right? Mm-hmm. And they post all these things, and there's a lot of followers, and it's, again, I go back to it's kind of the meme culture, right? Like, I want to read it in 1 minute, and I want to make that change. This whole entire process I have is 27 years in the making, and I still don't feel like I've got it all. Yeah. And everybody that, and I want to touch on this at some point, because there's a segment that I really love to do in every show, and it's called Who Do You Listen To? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of value in who you listen to. And if you're listening to something really quick, like a meme or somebody that just came on the social media set or whatever, that's not doing the work.
Yeah.
It's not doing the work.
No, and the thing about it is there's such a culture out there. You know, a lot of influencers, a lot of people are just making it look like it's easier. You've got that whole group too who are out there posting by their car or posting by their, but you know, it's not usually even their car, right? They've borrowed the car. I mean, they're just trying to look, and they go, well, okay, fake it till you make it. Well, bull, right? I mean, come on. The truth of the matter is you got to go in, you got to do the work, you got to earn it. Right. And we're just not, you know, for me, you know, it's not about fast money. You know, for me, it's about, I call it slow money. Right. Because I'm not going to get up tomorrow and I'm not going to be able to flip on a switch and I'm not going to have millions and millions of dollars in my bank just because I'm me. Yeah. Right. Nobody gives a crap about me. Nobody gives a crap about you. They care about themselves. Right. So you've got to get up and you've got to do that work.
It's a true story. I mean, we've had many conversations on this, and it is true. And it's one of those things that I like to kind of look at it from a couple different perspectives. Number one, when I'm hearing something from someone, like, we know you're doing this big investment thing, right? Mm-hmm. And last night we talked just a little bit about it. And so the question would be, in my mind, mm-hmm. would I invest my money with Rodman, mm-hmm. right? And so the first thing I always think of is, okay, how much did I have to work for that money? Because I'm still old school thinking. Right? Yeah. My dad bred that into me. Second thing is you have to really understand that person, what their motives are and what's going on. And there's so many things now. People are diversifying their money in all things that they don't understand, including I've got a little bit in crypto. We talked about that. I have no idea how it actually works. But would I invest with you? The answer is yes. But the reason I would invest with you is because I know all your faults. Mm-hmm. I get to see all one of them, but I see your successes in everything you do. Yeah. And that does warm me to the idea of investing money. Yeah. But I know a lot of your faults. Yeah. And I can live with the end result. I can live with the worst possible scenario if I invest that money I lost that money, but I knew that the guy was doing it the right way. And then I can live with it. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a big thing. I mean, a lot of people ask for money. A lot of people raise money, right? First thing I want to know is, are they willing to get up every day, work relentlessly? I mean, because when I get an investor dollar come in, we take that every single dollar seriously, every single dollar, right? That was a dollar earned by somebody. That was a dollar put aside for retirement for somebody. That was a dollar put for a child's education, right? Every freaking dollar matters, right? And I don't care if somebody comes into our fund. You know, we've got ours is set up as a Reg A, so we get both accredited and non-accredited investors come in. But at the end of the day, and this is a very hard word to say, by the way, accredited. It is. It's like entrepreneur. Yeah, trying to spell both of those bad boys. I've got entrepreneur down. But at the end of the day, you know, people come in and we look at it. We take every dollar, whether it's, you know, a $5 or $100,000. It's the same dollar, mm-hmm. right? And that's the way you got to look at it. And then you've got to, like you said, the people that you want to work with are the people that typically they trust you. They've seen your work ethic, mm-hmm. and they know, you know, regardless of an outcome, they know that you're going to get up every day and work your tail off on behalf of them. That's exactly right. And in the book, Complicated, Not Impossible, you'll see a list of things we go down. So we go down through mentality all the way down to spirituality, right? Every time I'm evaluating a person, if I'm going to do a deal or I'm going to do something, you know, where I'm putting up that hard-earned dollar, I go through that entire structure. And I think when people see that, it's really going to make a lot of sense. And I know you have the list there, but you got to get your mind right first, you, the investor, or whatever it is you're doing, and whether that's raising a kid or whatever. You got to get your mind right. And then you go down all these different cogs, if you will, of real life. And once you hit every single one of those, you look for that in the other person. So if you came to me and you were like, I knew you as a really mentally stable guy, mm-hmm. but your family's a shit show, right? Yeah. I'm going to be like, you know what? This guy's not staking it out there. And kind of when I'm investing money, I kind of like the family idea of that. Yeah. Or if you've been financially irresponsible, well, I'm sure as hell not giving you any of that money, right? Yeah. And so all of those topics that go down the way we think and why we think the way they do, that's how I base everything on what I'm going to do, including, I'll give you a fun example. Yeah. Last night, happening in my house. My kid in algebra scores shit, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling him, you know what, bud? Listen, you don't have to do hardly any work to get a C. Almost none. Yeah. If you do just a little bit of work, you're going to get a potentially a B, and then everything's good. No, we don't care if you get an A. Just don't get a D or an F, right? C's are great, fine, whatever it takes. In the exact same sentence, my wife says, I wasn't very good at algebra anyway. She goes, I just got my D and got out of there. And I'm thinking, okay, now wait a minute. This is not how we need
you're
to
not
run
lifting this up.
This is not how this works, right? And we make fun of that, but there is a psychological component that one must take into consideration. Yeah. Because in each one of our children is our DNA. Mm-hmm. So when you look at mom and you look at dad, that kid is a combination of that DNA.
For better or for worse.
For better or for worse. Yeah. And here's what I know about him. He has a lazy streak. Mm-hmm. That can probably be from my side of the 50%. But if you say anything that potentially encourages someone to think, okay, well, you know what? They got a D and that's okay. You're not going to get change. Yeah. And that can be a tough conversation that people have to have at home. But it's a real conversation that has to happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you know, you're talking a little bit about balance, right? So I'm a total balance guy, and I love that. Like, everybody asks me how I get everything done that I do. They say, you must not have any family time. You must not have any. But the answer to that is absolutely the opposite. Like, when it has to be hit 5 o'clock, I'm done. I walk over. Then I turn on the family, right? It's all about the family at that point. You know, you've got to, I figure if you don't have balance, you're not really living life anyway, right? Family, work, outside, friends, those types of things. If you don't have that, I mean, seriously, what are you working for?
It's true, but it's hard. It's complicated.
Okay.
But it's not
nice
impossible.
Work on the book title there. Yeah,
that's right.
It's not impossible, exactly.
It's not impossible, but it is complicated because, you know, you and I share a lot of the same thought processes. We've worked our asses off. I mean, I've been sitting in my office at 2 and 3 in the morning, right, doing things. And sometimes when I'm doing shows or when I'm doing anything on my own, you know, I want people to actually hear the deal. I've actually struggled with balance. And sometimes it's not the balance I struggled with. It was the fear also I struggled with. If I don't get this work done, then I'm never going to end up having that balance. And then it's a conversation where if your spouse says, okay, man, I know you're working hard, and I know that this has to get done, and I know you need the next 5 nights till 2:30 in the morning. Don't worry, I got the kids. I got everything here. Food, you know, I'll leave food for you whenever you come home or whatever. That is also balance. Yeah. So there's a difference between individual and there's a difference between family orientation. And I'll never forget my mom saying this one time. My dad was really working hard. They were getting a company up and running, and my mom would tell us, you know, hey, when dad gets home, be quiet because, you know, he's just going to want to go and go to sleep because he's exhausted. Yeah. And I thought, okay, well, makes sense, right? But I didn't appreciate that until I got old, right? They always say, just wait till wait till you have kids and things will come out. It's true. And I had 2 brothers that I played football with, baseball with, and stuff in the backyard. I don't really recall.
I don't see you being much of an athlete, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you, because that hurts. And so, wait, we played softball together.
I know, that's what I was basing it off.
You saw that. You saw that. But that was meaningful now. Yeah. And it's a tough conversation for sometimes because sometimes that balance is off balance, but you need that off balance to bring it back to balance. And the world really revolves around money and revolves around security and revolves around this stuff. And you can't cookie cutter shit. You got to be honest with yourself, and then whoever's in your team has to be honest with it too. Like I don't know if I'd want to invest with a guy that I know only works 2 hours a day. But even though they can pound it for 2 hours a day, I'm like, no, I don't know, man. I kind of want you working 10 and let me know how that works out.
Did you grow with money?
I did not.
I did not either.
We certainly weren't poor. Yeah. But not a lot of money. But this is another great segment, your show. But I'm just going to go ad lib here, dude. I'm just going out. Is that all right?
Go ahead, yeah.
All right. It's Evolve X. I'm the X.
Exactly.
You can do the Evolve people later. You know, my dad would give me $20 here and there for take my girlfriend out or whatever I was going to do.
I'm surprised you had a girlfriend too. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your story, sir.
That's right. I did have one.
So you were an athlete and you had a girlfriend.
And I had a girlfriend. Wow. Dude,
I mean, that's like...
You could put anything on a show, right? And he would give me $20.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd take her out and stuff. I didn't appreciate that $20. I didn't even know what it was. I just went and got dinner and drove around, put gas in the car, right? And one of the greatest honors of my life is I was able to help build my parents a home on their dream property.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the greatest thing I ever did. And it was all because I was humbled in the fact that they gave me every opportunity to do something better than they did.
Yeah.
And that's where he spent all his money. As a matter of fact, there's another book called Rich is Me, and it's the entire story of my dad, about how he invested all of his money into us. Mm-hmm. Now, if you got shitbag kids, that's a bad investment.
Yeah.
But apparently he didn't think we were.
Yeah.
And that was the case. That was his investment. And he invested in us. So again, his work balance, he was a 9-to-5 guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was a limited amount of money. Yeah. And it didn't get to increase or decrease like you and I. If we need something, man, we can just pump something out in another generating source. He didn't have that.
Right.
And so that money that he invested was similar to us investing in a property or whatever, but he put it into us three boys. And the story Rich is Me is they don't want for anything now.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty typical. I mean, thinking too, I same way, grew up with very little money. I mean, I remember my father and I, we had this little apartment when he was separated, and we didn't have enough money for food. Like literally, he was in education, and the cafeteria ladies would package up whatever food was left over from school lunch, and that's what we'd be eating for dinner that night. And Kool-Aid, of course. You have to have Kool-Aid.
Gotta have Kool-Aid.
You gotta have Kool-Aid. But I think when you grow up like that, you have a greater appreciation for earning, right? Like that $1, that $2, that $5, whatever it might be, that dollar is worth more. It's more valuable. It's like you want to make sure that wherever it goes, it's safe. You want to make sure that it's, being put to a good place or involved. It goes to somebody who is going to take the same care of it.
Yeah.
That you would take care of it, right? What about your? I mean, we've done well. We're fortunate. We're lucky. We've worked really hard for what we have. Every bit of it, right?
Every bit.
But we both grew up as kids with parents who didn't have money. Now we're doing pretty well, and we've got kids who are growing up with parents who have money.
Great topic.
Yeah.
Great topic. I love this conversation because let me show you my vulnerability right now. I'm not very good at it. When you talk about balance, that's where I'm way off balance. Matter of fact, I had a text to my daughter a couple days ago, and I said, honey, give that card back to mom. She spent like $800 in 1 month on, I don't even know what it was, coffees and all this kind of stuff and gas and running around with her friends. And yeah, $800 to somebody can be life altering. Mm-hmm. $800 to me is just a little bit of an annoyance sometimes. Mm-hmm. When I didn't get to spend it, the way that I would probably have spent that money. And, but I struggle like hell with it because, she went through 2 years of COVID. She's living the time of her life. I know that most all the great memories she's going to have is from high school.
Yeah. And
she doesn't have to work right now. She doesn't have to deal with IRS or deal with just the bullshit of life. Mm-hmm. And so I catch myself, am I investing in her or am I ruining her? And quite honestly, I don't know if I know the answer to that yet.
Yeah, maybe we'll know it soon. I'm the same way. It's like I don't know the answer to that question. It's like, my kids are kind of the same way. I'm kind of the same way with my kids. But I watch them. I'm watching them mature. But I will tell you this. Your kids watch you all the time. They're watching what you're doing. They're watching how you're doing it. They're taking it in. They're watching if you're a leader. They're watching if you're a follower. They're watching if you're an investor. They're watching everything, right?
Yes.
And they'll never tell you that it's soaking in, right? But it is. And they're going to come back around one day, and you're just going to be smiling ear to ear going, yep, that's my girl or that's my boy.
And I'm proud of her because I told her, I tried to do what my dad did to me. And I told her, I said, I need you to understand something. It took me 80 hours to make that $800 that you spent. Mm-hmm. And she looks at me and she goes, I can do math. You make more than $10 an hour. And I said, damn it. I got to change that philosophy.
She's already smarter than you. That's great.
But I did try and relay to her that dollar was earned.
Yeah.
And it was earned on my back.
Yeah.
And so those nights when I'm not home, that's the reason.
Yeah.
Is I want to give them things. And I don't know. This is why I do Truth Talks, right? Because I like to give other people options. And they say, well, if your kid doesn't earn it, then it's not valuable. I don't know if I agree with that completely. I think it's a great premise, but I don't know if it's completely. And I think it's for each person and their options. But here is a thing that you and I've talked about in the past. I have an end game, and I'm very crystal clear on my end game. And I think that is part of the problem with a lot of people. They don't know their end game. For me, I think I feel lucky enough to know what that is. And at the end of the day, I want to be sitting in my house in a rocking chair with my wife, looking out at my kids and my grandkids, and know that because the old man up there on the porch busted his ass like I do, they get to do what they want to do, not what they have to do. And there's people that have challenged me on that. And here's what I say to them. There's a whole lot of making money and doing all this stuff that I do that I don't necessarily care for. And it's a lot of work, and it's stress, and it's strain, and it's all of that. And I would like for them to be able to do what they love and still reap the rewards of having a bank account where their life is just not stressful all the time. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's my end game.
Yeah.
And challenge it if you may, but that's my end game.
No, I mean, that's number one, is a noble cause, and it's your cause. I mean, there's a million different people out there. There's billions of people out there, and everybody thinks differently, right?
Right.
And there's not a one of us that gets out
It's complicated.
and thinks it is complicated.
But not impossible.
Not impossible.
Sometimes we can aimlessly drift through our life, not really sure how to break the patterns and live the life that you've always dreamed of. I get it. I have been there, so caught up in chasing opportunities until I found myself in a life that felt foreign to me. It took me years to unwind the messy web to get back to what I've been put on this planet to do. And let me tell you this, purpose doesn't have to feel out of arm's reach. And I've designed a plan for you to do a little bit each day over the next 30 days in a challenge that I call the Outlier 30. It's specifically designed to help you find or create more clarity around your purpose. So if you're feeling lost and you want to finally turn things around and live that life that you were destined to create, sign up right now. It's free. You have absolutely nothing to lose and the whole world to gain.
Visit gorodman.com/outlier30 today.
But everybody gets up. Everybody thinks a little differently. And, your end game's your end game. Yeah. Somebody might be sitting out there now listening, oh, that's not my end game. Well, great. It doesn't have to be your end game. Go after your end game, right? Let's talk a little bit. Let's transition a little bit to let's talk about the entrepreneur a little bit.
So the entrepreneur in me,
I want to talk about that guy who's sitting at home right now, and he's got the mental blocks. I want to talk about the guy who's sitting there who wants to go out and do something, who's got the idea, who's got the system, or who's got the whatever it might be, the formula that he wants to take out into life, and he wants to start and do his own thing. But he's got these blocks in him that he can't get over, that he can't get out there, that he can't go out and make these things happen. What's some advice you could give to a guy like that or a gal like that?
I do consulting all the time, and it's a really fun concept, and it kind of boils right back around to the end game. What is your end game? And most people can't answer that, especially the younger people. They're just like, oh, I don't know yet. I want to make a bunch of money. I want to buy a house. I want to do all this stuff. That's not the end game. The end game is kind of your vision of what you want everything that you do manifested into what it ends up turning out like. Like this place we're sitting in right now, probably the most beautiful property in this entire city. You probably had that vision somewhere in your head, and you weren't going to stop until you got that contentment phase, right? But the guy sitting at home has to realize one important thing, and it's called network of people. So every question you have, someone has an answer for it. You got to find that someone. And there are guys like you and I who we can't help. Maybe it's our ego or whatever, but we can't help but tell people what we know because I think it makes us feel good or something.
Probably.
So they reach out to every single person they possibly can, and also reach out to people they don't think they can get to because they're going to be surprised. You're going to end up finding someone, and they're going to start giving you these nuggets and this information. Then you got to have the drive to take it to the next level. Then you got to have this thing called suppression of fear. There's always fear everywhere. I read an article that you'd showed me from. It was something that you'd posted and someone wrote back to it. And this is a topic that, me, I'm not scared to say anything. Yeah. And this guy was not a white guy. I think he was Asian, if I'm not mistaken, something of that nature. And for some reason in his text, it seemed like that was something holding him back. And in my crazy mindset, I'm always thinking, wait a minute, if I'm somebody that doesn't maybe look like the typical average guy, I'm thinking, what an incredible opportunity. You're going to get noticed over everyone else.
Right.
Are you kidding me? You don't want to look like everyone else. You got to separate yourself in every aspect of life. I even go down this thing, this is really controversial because, I like to do that. I like to push buttons all the time.
Yes, you do.
I do all the time. But, here's the story, man. Like, if you want to be uber successful, there are certain things that literally drive your opportunity for success very high. One of them is the way you dress, the way you smell. People don't want stinky people. They don't want people who don't iron their clothes. Nobody's going to trust them with that. It also has to do with communication. How do you communicate with people? If you're an introvert, get in front of that mirror and start talking to the dude across from you until you decide you're no longer that guy.
Yeah.
And you start to do all of these simple steps that you can do at home for free.
Yeah.
And the next thing that happens is all these opportunities come to you. People like you and I who have found some success in life, it didn't just happen. We had to do all these steps to get it to happen.
We did the work.
We did the work.
It's not impossible.
It's not impossible. It's complicated.
It's complicated, though. Yeah, for sure.
I noticed your couple sets of weights over there, dude.
I know. I lift the little ones, Yeah, you talk about you talked about that article I sent you, and it's kind of like you think about a lot of people. A lot of people go through that. They question themselves. They question who they are. Or, why should I do this? Or how can I do this? I can't do this, Or they listen to those outside voices that are going, you can't do that. You can't. Or the inside voices that they give themselves. I can't do this. I can't accomplish that. But it's so liberating for those folks. So liberating when they get up that one morning, they figure out they can do it. Or they take that first step and all of a sudden they succeeded at it. Or they took a step forward on it. And all of a sudden, boy, the liberation and the courage and everything that bubbles up from inside. I love seeing that person when that happens to them.
I always say, they go from I can't do it to I can't imagine not doing it. Once they hit that over the edge. We talked a little bit about this last night at dinner, but it was there was a post in David Goggins, which, pretty much David Goggins is one of the biggest badasses around, right?
Yeah.
And it was something to the effect of something to the effect of going with your dreams and dreaming so big that it scares you type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think this new generation, possibly even our generation to a degree, there's this thing where you decide, I'm going to push it, I'm going to push it, I'm going to push it, I'm going to do this, all this stuff to find this success, right? Your biggest enemies are those around you. They're the people that always say you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. So we're in this meme world now, and everybody reads that, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to dream so big, and I'm going to tell all my friends that I'm going to do a podcast, or I'm going to do a TV show, and I'm going to win all these things. What would have happened if you told people I'm going to win all these trophies by doing this TV show?
Yeah.
There's 3 or 4 of us. Man, I don't know if I'd have been in it, but I would have said, Robin's going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? But the 90% of people that are surrounded by you be like, he's never done that before. What the hell is that? And man, it's easy to listen to the 90%.
Oh, it's
real
more,
easy.
It's more than easy. And people always ask me, even with the television show, it's like, how in the hell did you do? How did you do that? How'd you make that accomplishment? I always go, I was just too dumb to know that I couldn't do it.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't get up and I wasn't talking to myself saying I couldn't. I was too dumb to know that I couldn't do it. I said, I'm going to get up and do this, right?
Yeah.
And I did it, and it worked.
And it's almost sometimes I'm like, when I'm having a discussion with somebody, I can see the disbelief in their eyes because it's too easy. Like, all right, here's what we did. We got a camera. We went out into this field.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the guy says, go. Yeah. And then we started kind of doing some things. Yeah. And then, and then they gave me these trophies. Yeah, and
why isn't everybody doing this?
Why isn't everyone?
It's so easy, right?
And honestly, it is.
Well,
we make life so complicated.
Yeah.
But just start. If you just start something, you then have an opportunity to finish it. If you never start it, you never get the opportunity to finish.
Yeah. My dad's always been very positive, which has been a great thing. He's always been that kind of guy. But with all this stuff that I do, right? He always comes out here and he's at the house and he always goes, son, I don't know much about what you do and how you're doing it, but keep doing it.
Keep doing
Just keep doing it. You're doing a good job, you know, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand what half the people on the planet do. I don't, you know, probably 99%. I have no idea. I couldn't comprehend it. But at the same time, you know, is it working for you?
Yeah.
Do you love doing it? Does it really float your boat? Do you get up every morning and go, man, I love doing this? Then keep doing it.
And I think that's, you know, that's why I wrote the book. Because people do need a little bit of a highway to be on to get to the point A to point B. And there's all these different steps that you really got to take. Like if you don't have your mind right to begin with, and the reason that we use mentality is the very first chapter in the book. If your mind isn't right, none of this is going to happen for you.
100%.
You're treading water, man.
Yeah.
So you got to get the mind right. And then the second one is the social, you know, who you're around, who's in your circle of influence.
Yeah.
And then how do you get a bigger circle of influence with more opportunity, right? And then are you doing whatever you want to do? Is that your vocation? You know, do you even love doing it, or are you doing it just for money? I've seen that a million times. I do some consulting with some MLM people. Yeah. And I always tell them, listen, if you're not crushed that your product ends up going away at some time and you don't love that product, you're never going to sell to that potential of whatever it is that you do. Yeah. And if I then see one that jumps to the next product when this product goes away and now it's the best one they've ever seen with a completely different company, I'm thinking, man, were you 100% invested in that? Right. And money can be made. Money's easy to make. Yeah. But it's hard to manage and it's hard to sustain.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about tribe, you know, and I can't recall who said the quote, but it was, show me your friends and I'll show you your future, right?
That was me. I said that.
Oh, you did not. That was a meme. You stole that from a meme. I know you did. No, it's one of those things, though. You know, you think about the people who you surround yourself with, and it's a tight core. I mean, you can literally, you know, you should be able to count on your hand the people who, number one, are there. You know they've got your back, and you know it's going to come the other way too, right? I mean, that's a number of people you should be able to count on your hand. But in general, your network. You know, if you're ever going to want to succeed and level up and go where you want to go upstairs, you got to put yourself in a group of people who think the same way that you do, or think like you want to be.
Yes. I have multiple tribes. So I asked you this question last night. I put you on the spot last night. Yeah. And I asked you a question. Give me 5 people that would be the most influence in your life right now that you would call on the phone on your trip back from Minnesota or wherever we were discussing. And all of a sudden that kind of hit you, right? And you're like, whoa. And then I believe you said something to the effect of, well, it kind of depends on what we're discussing, right? Yeah. So a person should have multiple tribes, because rarely are you going to find one tribe that kind of fits all of your patterning type of stuff. Yeah. But surrounding your social network and your network of people, I think is, again, you know, we list 7 different things, but I think they're all number one in different areas of your life, where you're at chemically, where you're at emotionally, where you're at spiritually, where you're at, and even your age. And there's a different chemistry in the brain, right? Yeah. And all of these things are all commingled and interactive. Like, I'll tell you something fun for your listeners, especially entrepreneurs, right? There's a certain stigma with entrepreneurs that they burn the candle at both ends, okay? And if they're not taking care of their health, supplementation, drinking water, exercising daily, that actually is a money cost that's costing them, because their brain chemistry, their serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, it's all out of whack. Yeah. You and I have been there before, where, you know, you wake up at 3:30 in the morning from your desk and your head's got the red deal there. Yeah. How productive were you? Probably not that good, right? At least for a while. But this entrepreneur type of stuff is, it's like working out. It's like anything else. You have to get everything emotionally right. If your spouse and you are having fights and it's not working out, it's going to hurt your entrepreneurship. If your brain is in a bad spot where your mind is telling it one thing and it's processing a lot of negativity, it's not going to work out. So really, the whole idea behind truly this guy that's sitting home on his couch that wants to be the absolute entrepreneur, it starts with getting the mind and the body ready to accept the success that's out there for it.
Yeah.
I think too, talking about tribe, it feels to me, or
I wish you were a little bit more excited about what I just said there.
Well, it was okay. I mean, that was a pretty good.
I thought that was freaking excellent.
Okay, you nailed it. Nice, good job. Is that what you need to hear?
I kind of needed more from you, but
man,
it's all right. It'll work.
Going back to the tribe thing, thinking about surrounding yourself with the right people. People don't realize the impact of the wrong people coming into the people, because there are people that will emotionally take every bit of energy right out of your soul. I mean, they will suck it out of you. They'll just take, and I call it this verbal vomit, right? Of these things that you just don't need when you're trying to grow and trying to be as good as you can be. What are some of your tips? What do you think is a good way to get those people out of your life?
Boy, that's true though.
The toxic people.
Man, they really are.
Yeah.
And you'll typically find them wanting your time, but wanting to argue. And so there's this thing where they'll ask you a question and then challenge you on the answer that you have, right? And that will just emotionally drain you. If you have your mind right and you have your end game and you know the plan that you're going down, they should be able to understand that relatively quickly. And when you hit a certain level, I did a podcast with the professor of rock, and it was really a great show. So he had done, well, wait a minute, what am I talking about? You were there with me.
I love that guy.
You were there. Kenny Loggins brought him up to this whole Stardom thing, and Kenny sent the elevator down. And I think I always like to relate a story to the question, right? And one of the things about that story was Kenny Loggins did not have to do that for him.
Yeah.
But he did, because he did the work. He had read over 5,000 books on music. They call him the professor because he knew more about their life than even they did.
Yeah.
And he had done that work. So Kenny sent that elevator down with Kenny's influence. Took him all the way up to this incredible thing. But I remember him when I did the podcast with him, I said, what did you do for Kenny? And here's where it goes back to that tribe thing and these people who will suck your energy.
Yeah.
He said, I would send him just a few things, and everything that he told me to do, I implemented. He said, then I reported back to him saying, Kenny, I did exactly what you said. Is there anything further I can do? He said, so I maximized every second that he would give to me.
Yeah.
So if a person's not maximizing every second that you give to them, they're your energy suckers, and it's going to be done. They're gonna just tear you down to the core.
I mean, I've always believed that you should come from a place of giving, right? Not to be taken advantage of, because there's a big difference. There's people, if you give and they're just going to take, and they're going to take and take, right? You need to be really good at understanding who those people are versus the person that you're going to be lifting up, because you know that the universe is going to, and you don't do it because you want something in return, right? You do it because that's where you're coming from, is that place of giving, where you're at. But I can't even tell you how many times that I've come from that position and said, I'm just going to give. And, if nothing comes out of it, I don't even care. I'll just be glad to have lifted this person up because I believe in their mission. I believe in who they are, what they're doing. And I can't even tell you how many times it has come full circle back to me. Oh, a millionfold.
It's increasing your network. You're still increasing your network. So we always think that you got to go after everybody above where you're at.
Yeah.
No, it's all down here. It's up here. It's to the side. It's everywhere. I had this person that I wanted to get on my show. And he was kind of untouchable. He's kind of untouchable. And I had already done a lot of stuff, and I thought, I want to try the untouchable. Let's see what I got to do to get to this next level. So I started making phone calls to
like Burt Reynolds or somebody.
It was Burt Reynolds. I don't know how you knew that, but no, this guy. I want to leave him unnamed because I am bringing him on the show. But
okay,
I called a friend of mine who was at a completely different level than I was, bigger than me. And I said, hey, bud, I know you may have some contact with him. Can you get it for me? He says, well, let me call a couple people. And he called a couple people. They were like, yeah, it's kind of a big guy. I don't think you're going to get to him. Then I called, and I went to this lateral side over here, and it was a guy who knew him. And how we done it, we stalked him on the internet. We saw who his friends were, right? And I happened to know a mutual guy.
Yeah.
And call him up, and I said, hey, how do you know this guy? Is there any way you can get him on the show? And he's like, oh, man, he doesn't. Yeah, he
Good
doesn't
luck.
do that stuff, right? And ironically enough, this guy that was doing some interning things for a deal that a side deal that I was doing, he says, well, my brother lives next door to him. And I said, well, can you maybe ask your brother if just go next door to your neighbor?
Yeah.
I got the guy because his neighbor asked him to do it. Not because some other famous people or some people with power asked him to do it. His neighbor got him for me. And so the idea is, don't stop when you get a roadblock on the first guy, the second guy, third. Just keep going. And now it's almost like a game to me. I'm like, okay, I got this person I want to get. How do I get to him? And it becomes this game, like this wicked, crazy, fun game.
So you're saying that you can pretty much get to anybody if you've got chloroform and duct tape.
100%. Yeah, but you got to use the right terminology in conversation. Be like, hey, does this smell like lavender?
So Mitch, let's circle back to the book. I'm really excited about this book. I can't wait till it comes out, number one. But let's relate that to the entrepreneur, to the real estate investor. Talk to me a little bit about some of the chapters. I know you've got one on mentality.
Mentality is the first one, because until you get your mind right, nothing's going to be good for you. That's the hardest challenge that anyone has, is getting their mind right. What does that mean? That's gathering their emotions, understanding other people, how to communicate, and how to actually process the information that you're putting out and process the information that you're getting back in. Mentality is huge. There's kind of 4 topics here. I'll make it brief. You have the intellectual. That's a person who can take information and question that information and not develop too much of an emotional side one way or another. You have the intelligent person who's done the work and they've looked at whatever topic they're doing. So if you're an entrepreneur in real estate, you know real estate. You're intelligent about real estate. Then you have the third one, which is the experienced. The experienced mentality is somebody who's been through it. So maybe if that's not you, you find that person who has. And then there's the last one that I always talk about. I tell everybody, don't be the emotional one. Emotional is the brain overloaded on chemistry. You'll never make a good decision. And you read the book, you'll see how all that ties in.
So what about social?
Social, we talked about a little bit earlier. That is your group and your network. So right now, social medias and all that stuff, it's about who has the bigger house, who can influence who, and so on and so forth. The network, your social network, though, needs to be people who are going in a similar direction as you are, who have a similar passion as you, or someone that you can learn from. And that is kind of the biggest third key when I talk about your social network. It's all about who can you be associated with to get to your end game, or get to your end product, or get to your end goal.
So I got my mind right. I've got my social network going. Then you go into physical.
Physical health is probably one of the most important things that can happen, because the mind is actually driven also by your physical health. So when a person's in good shape, they exercise, their heart's good, it creates this persona. People want to be around you because they know that you're willing to do all the work, right? And not only that, but it helps balance your chemistry, balance all your hormones. All of that is going to be very important when you're going to be burning that candle at both ends. You got to be physically fit.
And not everybody is going to be like as buff as I am.
Not everyone. Well, wait a minute. 98% already are.
Yeah, most 99.9%. But I'm still confident.
You are.
I've got good confidence
You do.
in myself. Vocational.
So that's doing what you love, right? If you're doing something for money, it probably is not going to show up quite like you want.
Preach.
There's one-offs.
Yeah.
There's the guy that hates real estate, but he knows it really well, and he goes into it and makes a gazillion dollars, but he probably doesn't want to talk about it to any of his friends or anything else.
Yeah.
If real estate is something that you love, as a matter of fact, I do have to throw this story in. So I have a real estate agent, but there was a real estate agent that was kind of similarly related, and he called me up and was doing a little bit of consulting. And he says, hey, he's telling me about this mind guru shit that you do. I need to consult with you because there's something that I need to figure out. He goes, I'm having trouble keeping up with some of my other people in this group, and there's these massively high-end houses. And so we went kind of through everything, and I go down this very list, same list as you that I do with every person that I consult with. And I told him, I said, stop trying to sell them a house and sell them the house that they actually love. I go, then they'll all refer to you. And he's like, holy crap. So he went to his first home, and he looks and he's talking to these people. And he used every one of these topics. And he tells them, you know what? I've never thought in my entire career I would ever say this, but this is not the right house for you. And they said, thank you for saying that. Do you have another one? He says, I do. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think it's the right one for you. He takes them over there based on what they had told him versus trying to get this sell that they kind of liked it enough to buy the house. They end up referring him 7 more homes, multi-million-dollar homes.
Yeah.
Just because they knew that he was now selling them the home that they wanted, not the one that made him money.
Yeah. Well, speaking of money, so then how important is it to have your financial house in order?
So finances are incredibly important.
Yeah.
Nothing puts a person in more stress than financial stress. I mean, that is one of the worst things. Matter of fact, most people commit suicide over this, right? We're not talking about something where a person's bummed out. We're talking that people in their lives with financial stress. Easiest way to not be in financial stress, don't spend more than you make, okay? And I'm not a financial guru by any stretch of the imagination. But that's a pretty simple structure, right?
Yeah.
Don't spend more than you make. And then again, surround yourself with people more successful than you. If you're the most successful guy in the room, you need to change whoever you're around. Always be the guy that's learning the most. And if you do that, that is going to end all the stress in your life. And I promise you, everything that you're doing in life will continue to proceed forward.
So the last 2 things that are in your book, you talk about family and spirituality.
And you know what? I would have put family first. And then after all of the stuff that I have researched, all of the case studies that I've studied, all the neurology, the chemistry, everything culminated into this was an interesting thing about getting the mind right first. And then family is probably where I would have started. The thing about family, and the reason that it's actually down on one of the lower ones on the list, is a family is really a support network. We're seeing a breakdown in families now, especially this day and age, and people aren't really sticking through the ugly times to get to the next level because options are freaking everywhere, right? But family is wickedly important. They are the people that can't truly just walk away from you. And you and I you had love from your father, right? He says, well, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it.
Truth.
Do you know how much value's in that?
Yeah.
My parents are like that too. You know, no matter what I do, no matter what risk I take, if I fail, I still have a room back there. I still have a room in the house.
So you think?
I think, yeah. Well, they tell me I do anyway. But that is of crucial importance, and we've got to get back to that really family unit where you have I always tell people, if you jerk the chain and it's stuck in this one place and it's always that familiar place, you can take much greater risk. And don't give up. No matter how much of an entrepreneur you are, how hard you're going to push this thing, build a family unit first. And when you do that, it gives you purpose, it gives you understanding, and it literally makes you want to do the right thing for those that you love the most.
Yeah. Mitch, loved having you on the show. Oh, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of things before we go. Let people know, where can they find you?
Well, what's your address? This is 74.
Not right now. Not right now. Just in general.
You know, truthtalks.com is probably the easiest place to go to. Most of our stuff is on there. Yeah. We are doing a whole new branding thing, so it will be releasing all that shortly from your show.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I'm curious on something, Mitch. You know, we've done a lot of things. You're very accomplished. You're moving your career forward. You're chasing your dreams. But who are the people that are out there that just stop you in your tracks and that you go, I got to listen to this?
That's a great question. First one that comes to mind for me is Jordan Peterson. I would tell any entrepreneur that's out there looking to do anything, listen to him. He's a psychologist. The guy's as brilliant and as genius as it gets. He doesn't mince any words. He's going to tell you the cold hard truth, and then it's up to you to take that information and do what you're going to do with it. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. Tony's been doing motivational speaking for umpteen million years. He started out in hotels with just a few people. He's incredible in just about every aspect that the guy does, and he stimulates you to be better than who you are. And then I would say the third one, if I had to just pull it off the top of my head, my third one is always people. It's individuals, especially individuals that I know probably have a story. So for me, I'm always looking for a story. I'm always looking for something. So if I'm in a gas station, I see somebody kind of maybe having a hard day or something, I may ask them their story. So 2 of them are famous people. The third one is always that guy on the street. I always keep my feet on the beat of the street. And that's where I think everything comes from, good, bad, or indifferent, but it keeps me grounded and keeps me understanding, keeps me motivated to do what I do.
Thanks, Mitch.
I appreciate it.
All right.